Your circle will change as you accomplish your goals and level up. Everybody can't go.
And we're live. Welcome to another Everybody Can't Go Convo. Y'all know I am excited to bring people to you guys every week. This week, we are doing something a little new. We're going to tease you with a little bit of something here. And I want to talk to you guys today about an exploratory dive in this adventure that I went on this one day, this one time. And so recently, I was invited to go along on this adventure and starting just to scratch the surface on the world of spirits. And when you say the world of spirits, if you see my lovely guest here today, you'll see some spirits right behind her. So we're talking about a little bit about diving into the world of tasting and experiencing what types of spirits that the world has to offer, and we're going to niche down into talking about a bourbon tasting experience that I went on and met an amazing bartender who is doing all of these awesome things with liquor, with bourbon. So with no further ado, I am going to introduce you guys to Jaz'min Weaver, the National Brand Ambassador of Bartstown Bourbon. Thank you for being with us this evening, Jaz'min.
Oh my gosh, thank you for inviting me. I am so excited to be here. And this is actually the second podcast I've ever been on. So here you are building my resume.
We appreciate you. We appreciate you. So, tell us a little bit about yourself and like what brand ambassador is. What do you do, and what do you currently have going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I came from Metro Detroit. I spent the past decade running bar programs there. I really focused on being micro seasonal, low waste, very craft, pairing flavor to fragrance and food to beverage. Right now, I am the national brand ambassador for Bartstown Bourbon Company, which involves me being on the road about 20 to 25 days out of the month, but going to whiskey festivals, providing educational experiences, introducing people to the brand, talking about the bottles. And it has been one of the biggest and most satisfying adventures of my life, actually. But it was something that I definitely had to grow into, and it was a little bit outside my comfort zone. Like having the bar between me and other people, I felt like I could say anything, do anything. I knew I made good drinks. It's something else entirely to be a public speaker or to just be out in the wild encountering people who might have like far more whiskey or bourbon specific knowledge than I do. But I've always viewed myself as an eternal student, so it has been really, really satisfying to be in these scenarios where I'm not the smartest person in the room. I have the opportunity to learn every day.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And you took us there really quick. I love that. With just talking about the growth that you're able to experience moving further and deeper into the industry. And within the industry, is this like a male dominated industry? Is it POC friendly? Like, what is the industry like that you've penetrated and started to grow in?
So the industry is this ever shifting thing. I do think that both bartending and whiskey tend to be pretty male dominated. In my career in Metro Detroit, I always felt like I had to be like faster, better, stronger, smarter, more talented, funnier to get some of the same acclaim that male bartenders that were not working as hard were getting. But I do think that eventually like that recognition for talent and hard work came through. And I think that the same is true in the overall whiskey industry. There are some real powerhouses, both in terms of like palate or being a master blender or brand ambassador that are women. And in fact, tomorrow I fly out to Charleston to go to Fab, which is a women's food and beverage conference for women, by women, 3 days of workshops. And it's for essentially conversations like this, for women to get together and decide, like, how do we shape the future of this industry that we are undoubtedly a part of and that we intend to be a part of for a long time.
That's dope. That's dope. Before I ran into you out and about, I had just maybe heard once or a few times a year. I'm very new to finding out about what I would consider like this underground world of women in the spirits industry and in the spirits education industry. And during your presentation, like I learned so many new things, that things that I wouldn't have even thought of, as far as like the pairings and the process to get things from farm to table, really. There's just so many intricacies in between the grains coming from the ground and the process that everything goes through, the process out at the farm, the climate, all of those different things before like a batch of anything is ever even made. And it was like a
Absolutely.
crash course. Oh, you go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing.
Okay, we got the lag is getting us, y'all. Y'all know how to be. Y'all know sometimes the Wi-Fi don't act right. But I was saying that it was like a crash course into all of these different things that I had never thought of, hadn't considered, and even looking at the way that the industry is when you're growing up at school. There's never a career fair that says, "Hey, would you like to be a spirits educator? Would you like to be a brand ambassador?" Or at least not that I recall growing up. We never know. Hopefully the teenagers now, they're getting exposed to some of this stuff, not the drinking per se, but you know what I mean. Because it's like such a wide world to dive into and actually learn about the artistry of spirits. It's not just a drink.
You are absolutely right. And it's interesting because I went to school for English. I went to the University of Michigan. I was super sure that I was going to write the next great American novel and that they were going to be teaching me right next to F. Scott Fitzgerald in the English curriculum. And when I went to school, it never crossed my mind that I would, like, going to school for English, people ask, like, oh, do you intend to be a teacher? And that was not my thought. But here I am being an educator. And this is such a different style than a classic classroom where you show up to the same place every day. I get to teach a variety of topics. And my favorite things are the sensory experiences. Like, here we all are in these bodies every day. We taste and smell things. And how often do we sit down and really focus in on what that experience is. So I love being able to help people expand their vocabulary of, like, how to speak about what they are tasting, and then also be able to pull out new notes. I love doing a sensory experience, and I love introducing people to our whiskeys. Just last year in January, our Origin series came out, and we were founded in 2016. The one thing that you cannot cheat when it comes to whiskey is the aging. So we were very patient, waiting for those bottles to be ready. And it is the biggest thrill and joy to take people through the process of, like, hey, are you picking up the notes of the stone fruit in the bottled in bond? Or, like, are you getting that ginger spice from the rye? So it's exciting.
That is dope. That is dope. And as you're speaking about the spirits, I'm hearing like a lot of parallels where you were talking about that weight that you can't rush it. Are you guys picking up what I'm putting down? Sometimes you can't rush it. You have no choice but to be patient so that you can come out with a good product at the end.
Absolutely. And that patience, not just for whiskey, but I'm 36 this year. I spent a long time in my life feeling like I should be further along, or why haven't I accomplished this yet, or what have I really done to establish myself? And everything that was meant for me came to me when I was ready for it. A lot of the time, people ask me, why did you choose Bardstown? And part of it is that Bardstown chose me. They came to me at my tasting menu restaurant. They tried one of my pairings and then talked to me about, like, hey, would you maybe be interested in applying for this role? So that felt really good to have somebody meet me for the first time and immediately see, like, value. Uh,
Mhm.
but also, it was it was one of those things where if it had happened sooner, I might not have been ready. I might not have had the knowledge. I might not have had the confidence. So that was a big part of it too. But the other thing about Bardstown, because it is a two-way street. Like we chose each other. Um,
Mhm.
as a bartender, I worked with all spirits, and personally, I'm a gin girly and an amari girl. Like both of those are botanical, nuanced, mini ingredients, and so it would have taken a very, very special whiskey to pull me away from every other spirit. Bardstown is unique amongst whiskeys because we don't have just a single mash bill, and a lot of our Discovery series, those are one and done blends, and we celebrate the art of blending. In our collaborations, we do unique barrel finishes by partnering with others in the industry, wineries, breweries, other distilleries, in a way that others don't. Like, yes, they do barrel finishes, but we're out here putting the collaborators' name and logo on our bottles. We want people to know exactly where it's coming from. Like, it's not just a wine finish. We want you to know the winery it came from. So it's unique in that way because even though it is whiskey and it seems like, oh, well, won't you just get bored with bourbon all the time? Like, no, each of these bottles is interesting and nuanced, and every time I try something new, I've already got like 3 or 4 ideas on like, how do I want to use this? What would I pair it with? What's the best way to drink it? So that, like, it stays exciting for me.
That is awesome. That is really awesome. And so you talked about that significance of choosing the brand and the brand choosing you, and it sounds like it's a mutual relationship there, and kind of like a match made in heaven. What were some of the things
Yeah.
that you were considering as you were like choosing to move forward with Bardstown?
So it was such a big leap of faith because I was born and raised in Michigan. I lived in Ann Arbor for 6 years, then I lived in Ferndale for 14 years. And when I got the offer, they were like, first, you'll be traveling a lot, but we would like for your base to be in Louisville so that you can be close to the rest of the team and to the distillery. So that was kind of a big deal for me, thinking about like, well, like right now, my little brother lives 2 blocks away, but if I go there, like I'm by myself. So it was taking, like, making one, like a location shift, but two, I was very, very comfortable behind the bar. I knew that I was a good bartender. I knew that I had great regulars that were going to come back to me. I knew that I could freestyle. And there were so many variables about being a brand ambassador that I wasn't sure if I would be any good at. So there was very much the, do you feel done with bartending? Have you accomplished everything that you want with that? But when I asked a couple of my mentors, one of them, Greta Harper, she was the Maker's Mark representative in Michigan when I was a bartender. And I came to her and I was like, I have this opportunity. I'm really nervous. I don't know if I'd be good enough for it. Like, I have this imposter syndrome. And she didn't even hear all of my like concerns. She was just like, nope, go do it. She's like, I know that you're going to be great at it. And the fact of the matter is even if you're not, you can always come home and at least you said that you tried. I was like, oh, okay, that's valid. Like, let others tell you no. Don't block your own blessings, essentially. Um,
Hmm.
and then another thing that I had been a little bit concerned about was just not having the same knowledge base as everybody else. And that was one of those scenarios where I just wasn't giving myself enough credit. Once I got down here, I was like, no, I know how whiskey's made and I know the rules of bourbon. And frankly, I have some fun facts and tidbits that maybe other people don't. So it just ended up being one of those things where you have to lean in, like bet on yourself. And everybody gets imposter syndrome, so don't fall for it.
That is so real. That is so real. That imposter syndrome will sometimes it can kind of scare you into complacency, because when you get that analysis paralysis, you feel like, well, what if this, what if that, what if I'm not good enough, or what if I don't know enough, what if I can't perform? And one of the things that I use to try to talk myself off of that ledge, if I don't phone a friend, I'm like, okay, what if all of these negative things and all of those thoughts, but what if everything goes perfectly? What if I exceed expectations? What if I step my foot out there and I'm the most amazing at whatever the opportunity is. Also asking myself, like, well, what if this opportunity doesn't come around again? One of my mentors, and shout out to ET, the hip hop preacher. He gave us a quote, which was take advantage of the opportunity of a lifetime within the lifetime of the opportunity. And that was something that really stuck with me, because I'm like, sometimes these chances, they come along, or these opportunities come along, and if we allow for that imposter syndrome to keep us like rooted in place, because we're like, but what if this, what if that, what if this, what if that? Sometimes all of those what ifs that we're asking ourselves, even those same good what ifs that I just said, taking too much time sitting in that space with going back and forth with ourselves, sometimes it's like, oh well, the lifetime of that opportunity is over. And it's like, oh darn. And now I'm still standing here thinking about, well, what if?
Right. Absolutely. And so I also got very lucky with Bardstown because they hadn't had a brand ambassador in a little while, and we were founded in 2016. So that is very young to be part of the bourbon community in Kentucky. There are so many historic distilleries that have been around for a really long time. But because we're so new, we're not handcuffed by tradition, and we haven't we don't have these like strict rules for this is how it has to be. When I came into the role, they told me, you know, apply your energy where you're excited to. If there is programming that you want to put together, let's explore it. If you think that there's an opportunity for us to activate somewhere or to collaborate with somebody, let us know. And it's been really nice to find myself in this role that also allows me to build with them as they grow. And I have a really incredible boss. He's the vice president of marketing, James Lake. When I came on board, he told me, I can teach you about the bottles, I can teach you how to talk about the brand, I can teach you public speaking, but I don't know what it's like to be a woman or a minority in this industry, and I'm doing you a disservice if I don't give you an outlet for expressing what that's like. And so then he introduced me to Tracy Franklin, who an absolute powerhouse in the spirits industry, one of the first ever Black brand ambassadors for Scotch, and just an incredible educator in general. Everybody should follow her, Spirited Tracy, on Instagram. But he introduced me to her because there were all these things that he wanted to make sure he was setting me up for success, and I just thought that that was incredibly thoughtful and like a very nuanced move to realize that I might not even feel comfortable talking about a microaggression or being the only woman of color in a room where I'm educating. So to give me the person to turn to be like, hey, how, like, this happened, or this is how I feel about it, or to build me up. And she's introduced me to a ton of incredible people. And I mean, even that's how we met. We were at a Black Bourbon Society event, and that's a fantastic community. Everywhere I've traveled nationwide, the Black Bourbon Society has met me with absolute warmth, and it's been a pleasure.
That's really cool. So speaking of having like that inclusive and diverse environment, and having like that safe space, what are some of the experiences that you bring to open up a diverse experience for everybody in this male dominated industry, where you're opening up and able to navigate safely as a person of color? What are some of those experiences that you bring to folks as you're traveling throughout the nation?
You know, first of all, I just think that me being present in the room is helpful. Representation matters, and it's something that's like so small and silly, but recently I was playing a computer game, Baldur's Gate 3, and it has a character creation where you can build your own character. And I was floored and delighted when they had my hair texture, like my natural hair texture, and not just a single hairstyle. There were a ton of different hairstyles. And I was like, this is the first time I've played a game where I've had these options to make a character look like myself. And it seems like so small, but I like called my little brother to be like, guess what? And so I think in that same way, being a biracial woman in a room with whiskey and like being able to be that beacon shows that like the table is set for everybody. Like we're all welcome here. And so I think that just being present is part of it. But also I do my best to invite others and connect, and I definitely try to coordinate with the local whiskey groups in the area. I tend to gravitate towards the women because I think that it takes a strong dame to be the only one in the room sometimes. And a lot of the time, when I end up speaking to the one woman in the whiskey club, she ends up introducing me to a ton more people that I am thrilled to meet or maybe even collaborate with in the future. Um, I just had the experience in Atlanta, Georgia, of partnering with a local candle maker, but she was a it's a Black woman owned candle shop, Lot Chandler 23, and it was a really cool experience, and we were able to build community together, by like her posting about it, bringing her people in, and then me being able to show up and meet everybody so that next time I come to town, like we can all hang out and plan things again.
That is so cool. And I will say, like, when I did meet you, I was very surprised that not only was I in a room full of women, a wonderful series of events happened that landed us in the room together, and just seeing you being the presenter and giving all of this information, it was a scenario or a setting where I've traveled the Kentucky Bourbon Trail before, a part of it, and explored it with my best friend a couple years ago. And each of the distilleries that we stopped at and were able to learn, it was pretty much there was always a guy teaching us, and usually it wasn't a man of color that was teaching us each time that we went to all of these different distilleries. And so here I am, like in the background, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that girl, her hair is gorgeous. And never would I have thought that you would be a spirits educator and one teaching about bourbon, just because of my previous experience. So that was something that it had me super excited when we came into the room, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, this is great. So when you're talking about sometimes being that only woman in the room, it I definitely, especially from what I know of your industry as a tourist, I'm like, yeah, that was definitely like a jaw dropper. um and that was something that it made me think to myself, like, okay, I was on the receiving end of this, like with just like, oh my gosh, and just like floored, like you said, in a good way, because of the inclusion that I was able to experience as a person. And the flip side of that, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, if I'm this excited, the same way that you were excited about the inclusivity for the hairstyles on the video game, I'm like, if I'm this excited about seeing her in this position, and I know that when I've seen spirit educators before, there wasn't, I haven't yet experienced this much inclusivity with bourbon specifically. I'm like, well, there's another side to that with what you're experiencing with being that only woman in the room sometimes, or the only person of color in the room sometimes. And that kind of made me think to myself, I'm like, well, so if she travels a lot, like what's her self-care routine like? Because you were so full of energy and just like bursting with like just good vibes, not just the like, here is my presentation and now sniff and taste. It was such a blast and so much fun. So like, what are some of the things that you do to like take care of yourself, and so that you're able to like stay upbeat as you're traveling around, just bringing these curated experiences to all of your audiences?
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much. It feels so nice to be seen. I really, really love what I do, and if that energy enters the room with me, then I am doing it right. Um, but you're right, traveling a ton, it can be draining, and being in a hyper social role where everywhere you go, there's always a new stranger to meet, but to make into a friend and hopefully a fan. Um, there are a few things that I find just like absolutely necessary, and one of them is stretching. It is like the difference between a day where I stretch in the morning when I wake up versus when I don't, huge. But then like some other things is just like realizing the things that you know to be true about yourself. Like I know that I love water. Like I love to be around water. I don't necessarily have to be in it. But when I'm traveling, if someplace has like a great river or like a waterfront or a lake, I'm going to want to see it. And I know that like that'll keep me upbeat and happy as well. And I think also just taking the time to recharge. Like because it's a social event, sometimes I feel like it's like, oh well, you should go out, you should meet another person, you should hit that other bar. It's like no, sometimes you just gotta go to bed. You just gotta take the nap, drink the water, um, and do the basic care things so that you can show up energized the next day.
That I love the self-awareness that you have, and it definitely just shows in how you show up when you're presenting, and even in the prep and the fallout after, as everyone's leaving, and you're like, it's like you come in there with your battery on 200, and by the end of the event it's like you were still charged up to 100%. So it really made for a wonderful experience. And to get a little bit of insight on like your self-care routine and your self-awareness, and some of the things that we've spoken about throughout our interview today, the like it's very insightful, and it makes everything make sense with how you're able to show up, how you're able to present, and just have the vibe and the aura that you carry. And it really shows it's because of the way that you take care of yourself, so that you're prepped to come out and be awesome when you get there. So I really love that.
My gosh, thank you. Um, and let me say, if you are ever in Kentucky, like no way to know whether I'll be there at the same time, but like definitely try to let me know. I would love to show you the distillery or the downtown tasting room. Um, Part of the reason that I'm able to carry all this energy and excitement is because one, I really believe in what we're doing. I think that we are the modern bourbon experience. I I know that we are one of the most innovative and interesting brands on the market right now. But the best way to see that is to see like the distillery. Like it is such a gorgeous place, and they're like words don't fully do it justice. And I think that if you ever get the opportunity to see in person what it is that like I fell in love with, you would be like, okay, that's why she's showing up like glowing. And it's because it's easy to love this, I think.
All right, you guys, you heard it. So y'all know what that means. Road trip. So we will definitely end up in Kentucky, and you guys, as much footage as I can get you all to what the experience looks like, I will definitely have some additional reels and information and content for you guys, so that you can see what this experience looks like as we dive a little bit deeper into this on another adventure, and exploring this what I call underground world again, and just taking it a step further. So look for that coming to you guys in the future.
Yay.
And thank you so much for the invite as well. That I will say that we could go ahead and call it a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us today, and all of the knowledge that you've poured out. And for those of you guys who this is your first look or your first take at what it looks like to explore the world of bourbon, or you've never gone to a tasting or anything like that, please do feel free. Just try it. If you're someone who doesn't drink, that's fine. That it's not for you. But if you've never done a tasting or anything like that, I would encourage you to put it on your bucket list, put it on your list of things to do. Sometimes we're looking for things to try out during the summer. In the fall months, we're looking for new experiences, something that we haven't yet done before. If you haven't, I would definitely encourage you to try this out, see how it is for you. And even if it's just for the experience, I'm sure that it will be something else that you'll be able to go ahead and check off that list of learning experiences. And if nothing else, you'll meet some cool people and possibly find something that tickles your palate in a way that's pleasurable for you. And thank you again, Jaz'min, for coming in on the pod today, for speaking with our audience.
No, thank you so much for inviting me. I am so grateful and so happy to be here. This is fun. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. All right. We thank you guys for tuning in for another Everybody Can't Go convo. We'll see you next week.